Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. It is finally here. Michigan, Ohio State, massive matchup. And where I want to start is a place that Michigan and Ohio State fans can agree upon something. And that is this is the best rivalry in college football. You look across the country, how many times is it just coming down to Michigan, Ohio State, undefeated, two of the best teams in the country with the college football playoff appearance on the line? You can't find that in any other of these rivalries, like the Iron Bowl. That's awesome. It doesn't beat the battles that you see in Columbus and Ann Arbor. This one taking place in Ann Arbor. Really excited to get into it. Before we do, just want to say thank you to you guys. The amount of support you guys have shown for all of these game breakdowns truly does mean a lot. If you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. And more importantly, let's get after it in the comment section. You know there's going to be some back and forth. That's what college football is about. So let us know in the comment section. Picks, predictions, keys to the game. Dill, going to kick this one off to you. Ohio State heading on the road to Ann Arbor. How we feeling?
And echo your sentiment. This is the rival. This is the greatest rivalry in all sports.
All sports.
And the fact that now Michigan's gotten back up, and obviously Ohio State's kind of been the standard for about really since Urban Meyer got there in 2011 or 12. They've been that team, and now that Michigan's kind of again just raised their level up to like those national heavyweights, if you will. This rivalry,
I mean, my year revolves around this day, this weekend, this week. Like that. That's like, as Michigan, Ohio State fans, that's what you're thinking about. 365 days. Most of these players, they're not thinking about a national championship. They're thinking about this game, and if you win this game, national championships come that way. They'll getting into the game. I want to start with this Michigan offense that there's been a lot of conversation around this Michigan offense over the last couple of weeks, going up against an Ohio State defense that the narrative around this Ohio State team has always been the offense. This year, I mean, Marvin Harrison Jr., the best player in college football. You take a look at this Ohio State defense, and as much flack as the national media loves to give it, you look at the numbers, 3.9 yards per play given up, number one in the country, only 9.5 points per game given up. That's number two in the country. Yes, this Ohio State offense can score points. It's got some playmakers, but this Ohio State defense has been next level this year.
And that's the thing. Like when I'm watching these games thinking, okay, how is Michigan going to attack it? There isn't just like that answer I think you can have for a defense that's that good. There's not like a vulnerability. As an offense, you just need to execute. And I think what's really separated Ohio State and made them, they were a good defense last year, they're a great defense this year, is they're making some plays. I mean, you look at Josh Proctor making those high impact game plays against both Rutgers and Maryland, those plays that kind of flipped the momentum in two games where they needed someone to do it. He's come up huge for them. Sonny Styles, I think, as he's taken on more responsibility in that safety room, looked really, really good. So that unit, again, much maligned last year, and we're very big part of their reason why they lost that Michigan game. That unit's gotten way better.
And we kind of said it heading into the year, like Jim Knowles does a lot of different things. Like this defensive scheme, it's complicated. Like he throws a lot of different formations, a lot of different blitz and coverage packages. And last year, you saw some blown assignments. You saw some growing pains in terms of the Jim Knowles scheme. This is the year that they've kind of figured it out, kind of similar to what Michigan went through 3 years ago when they kind of took on a new defense. And you have all these athletes kind of knowing and being comfortable in their roles and what they're supposed to be doing. You're seeing this Ohio State defense that was really good last year, just did not have like one or two good bad halves in the whole year last year. It's kind of taken its level to kind of that next level, if you will. I want to start with probably the biggest matchup that you're going to see is Michigan's run game against an Ohio State front seven, 3.3 yards per carry given up. That's top 20 in the country. You look at this front seven, there's not many guys either on that defensive line or in the linebacker room that are not going to be playing on Sundays next year.
Yeah, I mean, Hamilton, Hall, and Williams all in the middle, just so active. I mean, that's like what really separates them from a lot of teams is they want to make a lot of tackles, and they do. And obviously, the one downside with that is you do give up some creases at times. And I'm not like trying to say, again, like it hasn't really been a problem, but like when you see Notre Dame hit a big run or Rutgers hit a big run, it sometimes is them diving into gaps. But frankly, if I'm Ohio State, I want them playing that way because they're so disruptive. They make those high impact plays, and that unit's been so, I mean, those D tackles, again, a part of that Ohio State team that people like to come at or have liked to come at years before. That this unit, those three, I think, are playing on.
And you can play that way because you have linebackers that are as experienced as they come. Like you can kind of be aggressive with your defensive linemen when you have so much trust in your linebackers. A couple other things I've been noticing, kind of how I'm thinking about this game. If Michigan struggles to run the ball on first and second down, the biggest question mark is Ohio State rushing the passer. If you're Michigan, seeing Carson Barnhart struggle meaningfully in the last couple of games, Jack Sawyer and JT, specifically Jack Sawyer, has taken their level to the kind of taken it to that NFL draft level that you wanted to see from Ohio State. So you're looking at stopping the run on first and second down and letting guys like JT and Jack Sawyer pin their ears back in third and long, get after the quarterback. Massive story in this game. And you get to the back end. I mean, elite 49% completion percentage, giving up only 4.7 yards per pass attempt. You note it, Josh Proctor, Sonny Styles, Denzel Burke, Davison Igbinosun. I mean, these guys are NFL caliber dudes that do not give a lot of separation. By far the best secondary these Michigan wide receivers have seen all year.
And you can't put the ball in harm's way against them because they're taking it away. And that's like a difference. Again, a thing that separates really good defenses from like those great defenses, being able to make those plays. And right now they're doing it.
Getting to the Michigan offense and how you want it, that's like what we spent the morning talking about, is how do you attack this Ohio State defense that is so solid at all three phases? I mean, that defensive line, backer room, secondary, good against the run, really good against the pass. Dale, if I were to ask you what you want to see out of Michigan this Saturday in terms of getting after the Ohio State defense, where are we looking?
I mean, at the end of the day for Michigan, it still is. If they can run the ball well and do things off of the run, that's ultimately what they do. And you saw against Maryland, their offense was cooking. The first half, they were running the football really, really well. And then in the second half, Maryland really started to sell out to stop it, and they did. And that's where things started to slow down. I think they need to be able to establish it. And then JJ's just got to play a really good game like he did last year. I think the last couple of weeks, not against Penn State, he didn't really get a shot, but against Maryland, that second half, that's not good enough, I don't think, to beat Ohio State. So he's going to need to take it back to that level we kind of saw against Nebraska and Michigan State, and those, again, inferior teams for sure, but you notice those he's making the throws that he needed to make. I think if they can run the ball like Rutgers did and run some play action off of it, that's when Michigan's offense really looks good.
That's kind of what you need to beat Ohio State. I mean, it's going to be tough sledding running the football. Like, they are really good up front. You're going to need to be a little bit more two-dimensional than we've been against Penn State, than we were against Michigan, than again Maryland, excuse me. So I'm looking for JJ to have a good game. And two things that I have: one, figuring out how we're going to block these edges. Like, if Carson Barnhart does need help, you have to have a running back or a tight end chip. You got to do that. Two other things: the Mammoth package. Like, we had a lot of success running against one of the best rush defenses in the country in Penn State, bringing on 7 offensive linemen. Sharon Moore going to be the head coach again for this one. Feel like you're going to see a lot of that. And then secondly, the quarterback run game. We don't need to run JJ against a lot of these teams. And there's no point, right? You don't want to put him at risk of injury. But for Penn State, for Ohio State, these were the two games that we had circled heading into the year where if you're going to use JJ in his athleticism, it's going to be in those two games. And I would expect to use JJ a decent amount in the run game here.
And they really should, because you see how aggressive Ohio State's defense is. I mean, they want TFLs. It's not a defense that kind of slides laterally. They all fire their safeties now with the way Sonny Styles plays. He's very aggressive. That is kind of – I think they need to be able to use it. They didn't really use it a ton against Maryland. They used it a little bit against Penn State, and frankly, it worked. That will be a huge part. I mean, you did see Talia have a little bit of success, frankly, running the ball against Ohio State because, again, the way they play, it's hyper-aggressive. It is very hard to just run conventional with no misdirection, no putting guys in conflict. So there's going to need to be a lot of that, I think, for Michigan.
And we had some success doing that against Penn State. Very similar style of defense. Like, we're getting uphill fast, some delayed runs, some draws, attacking the perimeter, that type of stuff. When you have a defensive line that's as aggressive as Ohio State and Penn State, doing some of that delayed stuff, I think certainly could work in this game. Flipping the sides here, the Michigan defense, a very similar conversation. I mean, this has been one of them. I mean, first in points per game, only allowing 9 points per game, 4.1 yards per play. That's number 4 in the country. You're looking at two of the best defenses in the entire country. Looking at Ohio State, how they can attack this Michigan defense, where are you starting here?
Well, and what I think people are failing to realize about Ohio State is when they have Travion Henderson on the field, they run the football really well. I feel like people like to say, oh, look, this team can't run, they can't block. I don't think their offensive line is elite by any means, but when they have Travion Henderson on the field, he transforms their running game because he's just at such a higher level than the other backs they have. And that's not even like the Mayan Williams, Chip Trayanum, and so forth. Guys, solid running backs, but in college especially, there's a difference between those top end guys in that next tier, and you really notice with Travion Henderson.
Travion Henderson, again, Blake Corum's up there. Arguably, you're looking at two of the best running backs in college football, two in the a lot of NFL draft analysts, a lot of college football fans kind of wrote Travion Henderson off last year as if he wasn't playing at like 40% most of those games. You go back to watch him as a true freshman. Some next level juice during that year. And you're seeing that kind of form from Travion Henderson this year as he's gotten healthy. He completely transforms, and a lot of talk. We'll get to Marvin Harrison Jr., but you talk about getting the ball to your playmakers in space. Travion Henderson has to be at the top of the list. And again, you kind of see it. I don't think Ryan Day has as much confidence in Kyle McCord as he had in Justin Fields, as he had in CJ Stroud. So they're going to be leaning on Travion Henderson. If Michigan can stop the run, which they've been very good at, you get into stopping this passing attack. Obviously, Will Johnson, Marvin Harrison Jr., that's going to be an absolute elite battle, right? You're looking at the best wide receiver in the country against one of the best cornerbacks in the country. How I'm looking at it, can Michigan get after the passer? Because one, Kyle McCord not as athletic and in terms of extending plays. And then two, this is probably one of the weaker Ohio State offensive lines that we've seen out of them. It's actually a unit that's gotten better as I've watched them over the games, over the season. I'm looking at the inside. You look at where Ohio State might be weakest. That center position, Carson Hinsman, probably the weak link. Can guys like Chris Jenkins, Mason Graham affect the passer and the pass rush? Massive storyline in this game.
Yeah, and that'll always be a huge one because at the end of the day, Ohio State has something that not a lot of teams do, and that's like that real guy. If you need a play on the outside, like you see it with teams like Oregon and Washington with the Dunze and Franklin. Like when you need those plays to be made, you really have that guy you can go to. And again, there's probably only like 5 to 10 teams in the country who really have that.
And only one team has Marvin Harrison Jr. Like you mentioned Roman Dunze and Troy Franklin. I love those guys. Like Marvin Harrison Jr. is on another level. And if you're Michigan, I think you have to just accept that he's going to get hits. Like he's going to make some plays. You're going to have Will Johnson on him. You're going to have a safety over top, but you're accepting that he's going to make some plays. The best way to try to neutralize this, and I think what Michigan is most equipped for, is rushing on the inside. We have probably the best interior defensive line pass rush that you see across the country, right? Chris Jenkins, Mason Graham, Kenny Grant, all guys that have a 15% pass rush win rate or higher. You're looking at trying to get Kyle McCord uncomfortable, especially on the road. Probably the biggest key to this one.
And I also think that shouldn't come with, I do like the idea of blitzing Ohio State. I do feel like at times, again, a unit that's bringing in a lot of new pieces, especially at the tackle spot, you do see them, to me, get a little confused on the edge. And I do think Michigan does a very good job timing when they're going to bring pressure. And again, when you can get after McCord, that has been a problem for him.
Yes.
You saw it against Penn State. You saw it against Notre Dame. You saw it, frankly, against Maryland for the first half. So if you can get pressure on him, again, not a guy who can really extend plays, you can really disrupt what Ohio State wants.
And I wonder about the blitzing because it's when you blitz, you're given some one-on-one looks to, and it's not only Marvin Harrison Jr. It's Cade Stover, it's Julian Fleming, it's Emeka Buka who looks healthy. So you're asking a lot of your secondary. I'm looking for the stunts. And that is something that Michigan has done a phenomenal job over the last 2 years under Jesse Minter. I think it was like choppy last year. They're really getting the hang of running those games and twists and stunts up front. You're trying to get to an Ohio State offensive line that was kind of pieced together with a few transfers, few new faces, running kind of those games up front.
I think that the edge players are far better now. They really do present a practical threat to win on the edge. Like last year, Michigan didn't really have those guys on the edge who like could just go win one-on-one.
And you're also going up against two NFL caliber tackles in DeJuan Jones and Paris Johnson Jr. I think Ohio State's tackle play definitely is taking a dip, but I think Michigan's edge rushers, like this is the game that you want them to perform in. I remember last year, like they flashed in some games with inferior talent, but when you got to those games against the elite tackles, you slowed down a little bit. You need those guys, McGregor, Harrell, Josiah Stewart, Derek Moore, to have their best game. Dill, getting to the pick here. Ohio State 5.5-point dogs in Ann Arbor. How are we rocking?
I mean, I am as a Michigan fan. It'll always it's nice to see it Michigan as that big of favorites. Like again, you always come in, oh, we're being disrespected.
I don't give a damn about the line. Who you got winning?
I mean, I can't not say Michigan. Like you see the hat I'm wearing. It's Michigan versus everybody. I just and I wouldn't expect a single Ohio State fan to say Michigan's going to win. So it's I can't practically say anything other than Michigan. I got too much Michigan in me. To quote Harvey Updike, it's got to be Michigan.
I'm going to ride with Michigan too. And this was the year in years past. And I will say as a Michigan fan, it's been a tough go, the last decade, you win 2 games against Ohio State, and my childhood doesn't forget what it looked like for the last 15 years. And so this is a game that, again, spread aside, this is a game I feel as confident as I've had heading into an Ohio State game. So I think we have the advantage at the quarterback spot. I think we can get some heat on the quarterback. It's going to be a battle. I think we all know it. Going to ride with Michigan as well. Guys, get going in the comment section. We'll be chopping it up all week with you guys. Appreciate you guys supporting the boys. Again, if you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all later.